Won't be specific. Hey guys, welcome to another Run Wild with Us. Ask Us Anything. I'm Lisa Kastner. I'm the founder and executive editor of Running Wild and RIZE presses. I'm here along with Peter Wright, one of our fantastic acquisition and all in general amazing editor. And we are here typically with you usually we're here with a couple of others, minimally Ben White, who may join us in a few minutes. And we're here to answer any old questions that you may have. It can be around publishing, editing, the craft of writing, marketing. What is it that we do, meaning Running Wild and RIZE presses. The way that you get to ask your questions, all you have to do is go into whatever venue you are watching this on, go into the comments section and just type in your question. And then what happens is I will then repeat the question and we take turns in responding to your said question. So with that, and if you're watching this and it is not Thursday between 5 and 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern time, it's not a big deal, guys. You can still submit your questions. All you have to do is still go ahead and put it in the chat. And then what happens is during the week, I go back and I check for any, additional commentary. And we will then respond to those questions in the subsequent session. So with that, hey, Peter, how's it going? What's new and exciting, young man?
Going well, going really well. The biggest new and exciting thing that we've got, other than the stories that I'm working on, is we finally got a contractor for our pool. That's been a years-long process. We finally got one. Somebody, he's best in the area. So we're going to sign this contract on Monday, starts picking stuff out. That's going to be a process, but it's hopefully the last big project for the house. Hopefully.
So, wow, that's huge.
It's going to be really cool. It's going to make a big difference. Other than that, I started work on a new novel, working with the author a little bit, and I'm still waiting to hear back from my author from the previous novel. So things are moving right along. I mean, I'm no Ben White or Lisa Kastner, but I'm still doing my share.
Man, I'm no me either. The more I hear about me, I'm like, oh, really? I did that? That's awesome. Who knew? Well, that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah. I actually finally, after, I don't know how many people remember this, but back in like October, November, December of 2022, California, we had dozens of these massive storms, and my ceiling came in my living room.
I remember.
Finally, the roof finally got repaired.
All right.
Yeah, the ceiling in the living room finally got repaired. The room finally got painted, and now we're just waiting for the floor guys to come in and do the flooring, and then refinish the flooring and redo the trim work, and then I can finally bring back all the furniture that got taken out.
But you got a roof. You got a roof. That's the biggest deal.
Oh my gosh, that was so huge. I can't. And what killed me too was the contractors were, I mean, mind you, I give them a lot of credit. They were very honest. They were like, our wait lists to get stuff repaired is so long because like there are people who literally had like a couple of inches of water flooding in their homes. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it was the bigger jobs were the ones they were making as priority, which I totally get. Like, I'm not dissing them at all, but it's still frustrating to have to wait until the end of June, beginning of July to finally get, get this done. But thank God,
awesome.
We're fine. Yeah. Margaret Buchanan says, hey guys. Caroline says, great to see you. Great to see you guys too. Two of our amazing regulars. It's always wonderful to see you. So thank you for joining us, guys. I was actually, looks like Ben's with us. Hold on. Hey there, young man. How come you look so funny? What the hell happened? I guess Peter and I are too close to our screens. You must be like far away, or
It's
You're
a
like-
different box. It's the angle. It's got to be the angle.
it's got to be the angle, man. It's
And
totally.
you two are giants. You're giants.
And then now watch, if you ever got us, the three of us in the same room, it would probably be like the complete reverse. You know,
Yeah,
like,
I'm only like 3 inches tall in real life.
well, that's good to know. That's totally good to know.
Thumb.
So what have you been up to, young man?
I started the 100,000 word novel this week. Actually, I started it last week, but I found out it was the wrong version.
Oh,
So, word to the wise: if you happen to have a novel that's selected and you work on it before the editor gets to it, let the editor know.
yeah, that's kind of.
I'll start with the one that was submitted, but it's okay. I didn't get too far.
Oh, yikes. Well, yeah, I mean that is good. Now, admittedly, we do have it. I mean, it's not bad to work on a novel that after it's been accepted, but it is. You probably do want to wait before you dive into it. So, yeah, but it's all good.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to be making any
Especially
changes
early.
between the time you submit it and the time the editor gets back to you, give them the latest version.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Please.
Yeah. We've had a couple instances where they'll decide to message me privately and only send me the latest version. And I'm like, please don't do that. Please give it to your editor, because I may not be your editor, and I'm not going to remember. I can predict this. I will not remember that, you've worked on it. And so, and I always tell them this, and I always remind them. And then, we end up with Ben going, "Oh my God, it's a week later, and you did a complete revision." Oh, that's good to know. So always, 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 as soon as you're introduced to your editor, give him or her the latest copy. So,
Please.
yes, please. Caroline says, same here, Lisa, not enough worker bees. We were just talking about getting all the construction done and how I finally have a roof and a ceiling, and I finally have my room painted. Now we're waiting for the flooring guys to come in and put the flooring down and refinish everything. So
Nice. That's been a journey.
oh yeah. Yep, absolutely. I'm looking forward. Huh? About 7 months.
7 months, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good
So,
thing it doesn't rain in Southern California.
well, it would be nice if, now mind you, I grew up in New Jersey, so I'm used to having a little bit more like regular rainfall, not so dramatic of like no rain and then enough rain for 10 years. So, but it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, my old college town got hit really hard. They were like a couple, 3 feet underwater, the entire town.
No
Crazy.
way.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to college?
Montpelier in Vermont.
Oh yeah, Vermont.
They got hammered, yeah.
Yeah, they do get hammered. Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Drexel University, so that's in the center of Philadelphia. So what any I mean, it's like your normal dramatic or semi-dramatic, I guess. Winters, I have no idea. Anyway. So I was gonna say I'm at the tail end of editing 3 novels. One, I mean, I think it's absolutely phenomenal. We're gonna end up. I think she's got one more round of edits to do. I think it's really going to be amazing. You guys are going to be. I mean, it's basically a ghost story, but it's a story within a story within a story. So, yeah, and it's really well done. So you guys are going to really enjoy this. And then another one, I keep comparing it to like a Tom Clancy, but the primary character is in his, I think, like his late 60s. Like, I think he's like 68, which kind of, to me at least, makes it more interesting because he's actually knowledgeable. It's not like some 20-year-old coming in and like, I don't, learning everything on the fly. Like, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. So that one, I think it'll be a lot of fun. And the third one is much more literary in nature, and I have to go back and look at it because I made a lot of suggestions that would actually change the narrative. So, but I think that one's going to be a lot of fun for readers too. And then I had it looks like a short story I submitted to a magazine, a well-known magazine, which once I've signed a contract, I'll talk about it more. But the primary editor was like, "Oh my God, I love this so much," which means I'm completely biased. So I gave it to my assistant to edit. I was like, "Yeah, no, I totally understand." Because there's those stories that, when we get them, you read it and you're like, this is phenomenal. Oh my God. And it's like, wait a minute. There's nothing that's that perfect, so I probably shouldn't be the one to be the editor for it. So, but all the edits are done and it's back in the hands of the magazine. So, fingers crossed it's still good, and, they'll go forward with it. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. And from a related industry perspective, now both SAG-AFTRA, so both the Actors Guild and the Writers Guild are on strike. The Actors Guild declared they're going to go on strike as of midnight tonight. So that's a huge deal in general, obviously. What's interesting too, though, is San Diego Comic-Con is, I think it's this weekend. It's either this weekend or next weekend. And a lot of studios have already declared that they're not going to be there because of the two strikes. But I think a lot of actors and writers aren't going to be there either. And that's really why a lot of people go to San Diego Comic-Con, right? Because they want to go see their favorite actors and meet their favorite writers. So I'm really curious to see if they're even going to have, if they'll have the Comic-Con, and if they do, like how many people will actually attend,
Yeah.
So, Caroline says, so sad up there, Peter. Oh, at Vermont. Yeah.
It was nasty seeing all the places I used to frequent. Some of them are new. Some of them are been there for years. They completely destroyed the basement of one of my favorite bookstores, Bear Pond Bookstore. But they got back up and running. They got a bunch of volunteers to come in and help fix up the books. But it's pretty sad. I mean, it did a lot of damage.
Oh, boy. Wow, that's awful.
Mother Nature.
So, with you guys, anything interesting going on? Like anything you want to share? Any new experiences or learnings? Well, right before this, I was actually telling Peter, we go through cycles where sometimes we have authors who get really, really, really upset about things. And they send me these like 2 page long emails, basically telling me to expletive off and how everybody's a jackass and we're all complete jackasses. And how dare we, I don't know, fill in the blank. And then usually it takes me a while to understand like what we're talking about, because something, some kind of trigger, some type of explanation, some type of misunderstanding, and 9 times out of 10, if I get on the phone with the author, or I finally get to them to a point where I understand what we're talking about, instead of it just being, one raging telling off, then we get to a point where it's like, oh, okay, nope, now I understand. So, like we have one author who emailed me and demanded why wasn't his book available on our website? And I was like, well, where are you looking? Because our website isn't actually an e-commerce site. Our website is really just a site that takes you to links to other sites like bookshop.org, and you can buy the book off of there. And our site really just promotes a lot of our authors and our and some of the books that we put out that might be a little bit better known, right? And I still don't know where he was looking, because I still don't understand the email chain. But I finally sent him a link to, like, well, here's your book on bookshop.org, on our portion of bookshop.org. So I know you're represented. So I don't know, please let me know if what I don't understand, kind of thing, And another author didn't understand that so like if, and this is true of any publisher, right? We submit to our distributor the copy that will then get pushed to all the e-commerce sites, right? So if you go to target.com or Amazon or bookshop.org or any online book sales site, you'll notice the copy's the same, right? It's got the same descriptions, the same reviews, the same. Well, that's because it's all coming from the distributor, right? So that, because the distributor has a catalog, and in that catalog we submit all these, descriptions and so on. Well, let's say you decide you're the author and you want to have something changed in your back jacket copy, or we want to add, descriptions or book reviews, right? About your book. Well, we submit it to the distributor, and then the distributor electronically pushes it to all those e-commerce sites, right? Now, depending on the technology that the e-commerce site is using and that your distributor is using to push that information, will depend on how long it'll take to show up on those sites. So we may submit it and to the distributor, but it may not actually get pushed to that e-commerce site. It could be a week, it could be 2 weeks, right? It just really depends on when they decide to do that, like mass, what I will call a refresh, right, of the information. And again, if the e-commerce site is using more archaic technology to do those updates, it could be another 2-3 weeks after that. So I know we're so used to seeing things and getting things now, like immediately. It feels like if you sent us, like if you're an author and you send us an update for your back jacket copy and you don't see it the next day or within the week on an e-commerce site, that's why, right? It has to do with that process of how all that actually gets updated. It doesn't mean that we blew you off and told you to screw off and we're not going to do it, right? It has to do with the technology and how everything is being leveraged across all of those different venues. So I wish it was a lot simpler, because you would think, at least me being my day job is as a technologist, I would think that everything would be simplified by now, but no. The reality is, in some cases, it's much more complicated than anybody would even want to admit to. So, oh, and so Peter, we actually got a note today from, I think it's indiereviews.com or Indie Reviews, the magazine, that they're going to feature Curtis's upcoming book, The Lost and the Blind.
Awesome. That's fantastic news.
Absolutely. Although they didn't send me a copy of the actual review, which is why I haven't forwarded it to you and Curtis. So I'm just, now to date, they've loved all of Curtis's books. So they've always given Curtis a great review. So fingers crossed, this is still true. But yeah, that was some solid info we got in the last. Yeah.
Yeah, I love his writing. That's why I always raise my hand first when one of his books comes across the transom. I'll take it. I'll take it.
And he always raises. He always says he wants to work with you. So I think the feeling is mutual. Yep. Very, very cool. Let me think. What else interesting has happened in the last week since you guys have logged in with us? And again, if you're new and you're watching this and you have never heard of us before and you're like, who are these three crazy white people who all are clearly in different places? We are some of the core editors for Running Wild and RIZE presses. If you want to look us up, just go to runningwildpublishing.com and you can find out all about us. And we actually have that are already available over 80 books, believe it or not, which is pretty amazing considering we've only been around since 2016, but we haven't had anything published since we started actually having books available in 2017. That's what I'm trying to say. Either I need more coffee or I need a glass of wine. I'm not sure. I'll find out later. So, we publish cross-genre stories. We publish genre stories written by people of color and those from other underrepresented groups. And we love what we do, which is why we're here. So I think someone last week had asked, why do you guys do what you do? You must be exhausted. And Ben and I were both like, well, because we love it. Because, it sure as hell isn't because we're billionaires off of it. It's because we believe in the stories that we get, and we believe in our authors. And honestly, we believe in our editors because we've got a pretty decent pool of editors that we work with too. And we want to get these amazing, amazing stories to readers and listeners and watchers and like you name it, right? Because we also have a lot of books coming out in audiobook too. Shocking Pink is now actually available on ACX on Amazon for audiobook. And we're actually going to have a couple of other books out soon on audiobook as well. So, which is super exciting. So the guys, if you're watching us, the way we work is when we acquire a story, when the book is ready for going to production, we then actually pitch it to various audiobook companies. And if none of them pick it up, then we then go ahead and we produce the audiobooks ourselves. So because of that, we've actually got several audiobooks coming out soon. And like I said, as I mentioned, really excited to get those to you guys. Which actually, that reminds me, we should probably create a page on our website that just links to all the audiobooks that are available as well. Because since it's ACX, that means Amazon only. It's only on the Amazon related sites if we're producing it. But if it's done by like a professional audiobook company, it's available in all formats. So I'd rather make it easier for folks to get to them than not, if that makes sense. So I need to know, both Ben and Peter, how are you guys doing on your own personal writing? What's going on? I feel like you both owe me stuff.
I do. I do. And it's coming along. It's finally making some strides. So I hope to have it in Kathy's hands soon and then your hands.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. I'm going to ping Kathy and find out what's going on.
She'd love to hear from you.
I absolutely adore her. So for those watching who have no idea who Kathy is, Kathy's Peter's wife. And we bonded over a cruise to Mexico, where we all got to act goofy and probably drink a little bit too much. But so what?
Nobody fell overboard.
No one fell over. Well, yep, at least not this year. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll do it again next year or the year after, and we'll see how many people actually need some kind of floater or something to save their little heinies from falling over. But how about you, Ben? What are you working on?
I'm working on delegating everything I'm supposed to be working on to Peter.
Is that where this is coming from?
Yeah, it's a steady stream of work. I actually wrote 1,100 words this morning on a new idea.
Wow.
Oh wow,
That's awesome.
When they come, I got to write them down because then it'll sit there for 3 or 4 years before I get back to it. But the initial idea is captured. It's a different. Well, it's not really different. It's me.
okay.
It's more prose than poetry, so it is different.
Oh no, that is for you. That is different. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Energy, but it's a merger of a poet and an automaton.
No. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. It starts off with the automaton used oil like pronouns, and the poet used pronouns like oil, so they merged.
Okay. Sure, why not?
And you wrote that in the morning. At night.
Yeah, oh yeah. And they merged together in Detroit. We see where it goes.
Okay. All right. That's sure.
Yeah,
And I'm still typing up a bunch of collections. But
Oh, and we got a couple more submissions for the Cure anthology. So for short stories written in the world of Cure. And so for those watching, I just want to remind you that you need to submit your story by July 31st because it is going to close. We're closing submissions on July 31st. And I am putting the link to that submission page in the chat for anybody who's interested. So I'm really excited. I've been lucky enough. A few people have reached out to me to tell me about their ideas for their stories, or what they've already written. And honestly, they sound phenomenal. So I'm forcing myself not to start reading the submissions until it's like done. But I'm really excited about this. It's going to be a lot of fun. So
have you got one coming, Peter? Have you got one of those
for
the Cure? Have you got a story for the Cure?
I do not. No, I'm pretty much focused on my novel.
I'm focused on your novel too. So I tried to avoid the Cure story because I have two. Lisa, you'll get them.
All right.
The 31st is so far away.
It's only 2 weeks from now.
No, 18 days.
18 days. 18 days and how many hours?
5.5.
All right. Cool.
Maybe 17 days and 5.5 hours. I'm on it.
And
I know the characters in Cure really well.
Yes, you do. And so I actually started because both Cure and the follow-up we've written so far of Oh my God, I can't believe I'm brain dead on the follow-up, the name of the follow-up. Family Pack.
Family Pack.
Yeah, both use a lot of mythology in the storyline. So now I'm actually researching like what countries do we want to have the third book in, so that we can leverage the mythologies from those countries, if that makes sense. So that should be a lot of fun. And I'm also working on a self-help book, because I've had a lot of people come to me and they were like, how the hell did you do everything that you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess I should figure it out. And then other people can do it too. So came up with the title Lost Luggage, because you never know what you lost until you find it. And I'm going to be spending my own personal writing time more so focused on, like, because I already have an outline, but like fleshing that out and then getting it in shape so that it can actually get into the hands of people to use it, so
awesome.
Yeah, Peter, you might actually find it helpful, because it's all about, like, if you've got a dream, you've got something you want to get done, so how do you identify that passion, identify that dream, and then how do you make it into something that's more tactical that you can then accomplish and get it out there. So
definitely, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah,
use all the help I can get.
I don't know. I personally think you can do it well without it, but just because I've known you for far too long. But I'm planning on having a couple of like templates in it so that you can use that. Like that might be actually really helpful, right? Like to have those things to help you map things out. So, because believe it or not, I do that. I'm that big of a nerd that I like. I actually do map out like what I want to do, and then like figure out how to do it, and then I actually do have a not just template, but I have a whole workbook that I use to get stuff done. So yeah, it's probably much more indicative of the fact that I have an MBA and I come from a background with a lot of taking a lot of strategy and implementing it through like programs and things like that. So yeah, people will be like, my God, is she a nerd or what? Like, God, Scott.
Linear approach. Just say, I have a linear approach.
I have a linear. I take clouds and make it so that they can be rain that then becomes growing plants. So, yeah.
Linear approach. Very nice.
Yeah, why not? Well, guys, it's already more than half past the hour. And if you are watching this, then you're not sure what to do, just go ahead and pop any kind of questions that you have or comments into the comments section of whatever venue you are watching this. And if you're unsure of what to ask us, you can ask us whatever you want. Most of the time, people ask around things around the business of publishing, editing, marketing, the craft of writing. They may ask questions that are specific to our publishing houses, Running Wild and RIZE presses. And typically what happens, ooh, that was interesting. And slightly scary. Typically what happens is we'll repeat the question and then we take turns in responding to the question. So don't be shy. Again, we are more than happy to get any kind of questions that you may have. So I don't know, Ben, Peter, do you guys have any questions for me? Okay. Sorry about that. For some reason, my screen keeps going dark and then coming back. So if I drop, I apologize.
Well, can you run us through the process from the time the author and the editor give you the final copy of the book? What are the next steps before to bring it all the way to publication? Just walk us through that.
Oh yeah, sure.
Awesome.
So typically, to what Peter's referencing is we have, I guess you could say, 3 big steps, right? Step 1 is the author sends us their writing, and then let's just assume we accept it, right? Once it's accepted, a contract signed, then an author is assigned an editor. The author and editor then work together on the work. And by the way, I'm doing this in a super high level. There's a lot more detail to it that we won't get into right now. And once the editor and the author are in agreement that the book is ready for publication, it then goes to our production team. So we have an amazing production team of Evangeline and Kimberly, who they are just absolutely phenomenal. And what they do is they then will engage with the author, and they'll send the author. We have a marketing plan template. We have an author questionnaire. And what they'll do is they will go through, they provide that to the author. Now, the author questionnaire, just so you know, the author questionnaire is actually used by both us and by the agency that we work with, who the agency, they take the information and then they provide that, as well as something that's called a one-pager. And a one-pager is typically the cover of the book, the back jacket copy, author bio, and then any kind of interesting information about the novel itself or the author. And they use that as a sales tool to audiobook companies, studios, companies for translation, and so on, to about potentially picking up the story itself. So the Kimberly and Evangeline, so I'll just say our production managers, right? So our production managers at that point, they go to the author and they work with the author on the back jacket copy, on the author bio, if the author wants to have an image or not on the book. Believe it or not, a lot of authors don't. They work with the author to find out, like, okay, do you have any thoughts on what on the cover? Now, my caveat to this is all they're really asking for is, like, if they have any inspirational, if the author has any inspirational artwork or any, when they think about their stories, they're like, are there images that come to mind? Because we have a standard cover designer that we use, and he's been our cover designer, oh my gosh, I want to say since like 2018, something like that. And our product designer, our product managers will take those concepts, provide it to our cover designer. He'll come back with like 2 or 3 different variations. They'll then, ask the author, do you have a preference as to which one? And then the one version that the author has a preference for, they'll then drive that forward as the actual cover design. And then Kimberly and Evangeline will then, from there, they take all this information that they've basically worked with the author on. They provide it, as I mentioned, to the agency. They provide it to our distributor. They provide it to our head of marketing, and they provide it to our head of licensing. And then what they do is Laura, who's our head of marketing, the closer, like I'd say 90 days before the date of publication, she'll start using this information and put it out on social media, in our newsletter. A lot of times we've started a new program called 20 Questions. So I'll reach out to the authors, and if they're open to it, we'll record an ad hoc. I asked the author, well, actually it's more than 20 questions, to kind of generate interest and get more information, not just about the author, but about background on the story itself. And then our product managers also, what they do is, it's usually at least 4 to 6 months before the publication date. They will then send out a query to reviewers, bloggers, anybody who might be interested in running something, some kind of publicity or what have you about the book and generate interest. So start generating interest about those actual stories. And in the meantime, oftentimes the author is out there reaching out to like conferences and workshops and book festivals and so on about possibly doing appearances. It's interesting. I actually had an author recently who reached out to me and was like, what are you going to do for me to get me on festivals? And I was like, well, honestly, every time I've reached out to a festival directly about an author, the festival would say, I want to hear from the author. I don't want to hear from you. So, there are some venues that they do want to hear from the publisher. They want us to, to bring things forward. That's usually more so for like awards, reviews, blogs, stuff like that. They want to hear from the publisher. But typically for an author to get on like a panel or a workshop or something like that, they want to hear directly from the author or whoever is going to be facilitating that panel. At least that's been my experience. So I'd say that's at least 80%. I'm sure I'm missing stuff, but that's most of what happens once the actual editing portion's been completed. Cool. So
thank you.
No, thank you. Caroline says, Ben,
the editor is not gone for the author. The editor is still a resource for the author to ask questions. It's sometimes a conduit between the author and the production folks and the marketing folks. So it's not like you just edit and then see you, Ben. As much as you want to have that happen, it doesn't happen.
Well, but no, that's a great point, because we have instances where like the author has a hard time figuring out what they want to have for the back jacket copy, right? Or they're asked about like, what's the one-liner, right? And a one-liner is like a 1-sentence or 2-sentence description of the story. And that can be really hard, especially if you've been working on something for a long time. Okay, I'm back. This is really strange. Especially if you've been working on something for a long time and, you've been so in the weeds, you may have a hard time really pulling back. And so to Ben's point, leveraging your editor is a great idea, right? Because they may have a better time of having that emotional separation. And sometimes, to Ben's point, Laura and or Joelle's is in charge of the licensing aspects. They may reach out to the editor to get feedback like, we were thinking of submitting this for this award or submitting this to be considered for, whatever. What do you think? Right? Because again, the editor oftentimes will have really, really great insights into the story. So Caroline says, Ben, so it's all about you, man. Any idea when we will know what short stories you're choosing? Still seeing in progress on all my submissions of short stories. Not to put you on the spot or anything.
No.
Why is that, Ben? Come on, Ben.
Well, I'll let all the other authors know. I just left yours in progress, Caroline. Sorry. That's a lie. Sorry. It was supposed to be done this week because I have, as talked about last week, I have 27 short stories chosen. I'll probably go back into the maybes and get 3 more just to make it work out to an even 30. Mm-hmm. And then the notices should have gone out this week, but I was wrapped around. As Lisa was finishing up 3 different novels, I was finishing up 3 versions of the same novel.
No, okay.
As discussed. No, that's not that bad. But I did start that novel and it pulled some time away. And then work always gets in the way. We had part-time interviews yesterday. Interviews for part-time instructors.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. We were looking for part-time instructors. But that's something different and explains the lack of notices going out, but they should go out soon, Caroline. And yes, you have one chosen. I don't know which one, but you have one chosen.
And he's not just saying that so that you're not mad.
Yeah, to get you to leave me alone.
Or maybe he
You
is.
know I wouldn't do that.
And
And then
sorry,
I'll start editing. I'll start editing in August, and hopefully the manuscript will be done by the middle of September and sent to production by October for whenever that is for Anthology 8.
and Margaret asks, what percentage of manuscripts pass? Oh wow, that's a really low percentage. Sorry. So I just looked this up. So we've had a total of over 3,100 submissions, and out of 3,100, we've either accepted or completed 435. So what's that, like 9%?
How many
Something
total?
like that. 33,111. And we've only accepted
14%.
Oh, 14%. Okay. Yep. So, wow, we're snobbier than I thought. I blame it all on Ben. So,
Yeah, I've got to go back now because I think the short story percentage was closer to 27%. It was about maybe a little less, maybe 25%.
oh, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go back and I'll cut that down. Sorry, Caroline, yours is cut.
Boom.
Just kidding.
Margaret asks, what novels are up for options like film adaptation? So honestly, unless it's something that's been completely cleared and it's already like greenlit, I can't talk about it. But I do know that we have a couple that are let's just say are in the running. So and I do know we've had a few that actually, because I was just reached out to about one. And I know that another one was being considered by a couple of different studios. So, but I'm not allowed to talk about that. But thanks for asking. Oh, Caroline says she's going to get you for that, Ben. So you're in deep shit, just so you know.
I really expect to be gotten.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you shouldn't be surprised. You earned it.
Most of my victimhood is self-imposed.
As all of our victimhood tends to be self-imposed. So yeah. But anyway, so wow, we've only got 12 minutes left, guys. As I said before, feel free. Got any questions? Go ahead and pop your comments or questions into the chat, and we will be more than happy to repeat said questions, and then we take turns responding to them. And if you are watching and it is not Thursday between 5 and 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern time, it's not a big deal. You can still just go ahead, put your questions or comments into the comments section, and we will be absolutely more than happy to respond to it in the subsequent week. So, or whenever we get to it, right? Because maybe you're watching this and it's like 6 months later. Who knows? Margaret asks, what are a few of the reasons you rejected the manuscripts? All right, I'm going to let Peter take a shot at that first, and then Ben, and then Al.
That cleanup.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing that I look for that makes me pass or reject a manuscript is if there's nothing that grabs me in the first couple of pages that makes me want to keep reading. Of course, the writing has to be top quality or as close to it as possible. But that catch and the overall, just, it sounds kind of corny, but the ability to tell a story coherently. Instead of jumping all around, you're doing it linearly. And then if you're doing a story within a story, like Lisa was saying, you have a control of that. You have control of that aspect of your story. So there's a lot of different things that go into my selection for what I accept or what I vote for and what I reject.
How about you, Ben?
I would say the same thing. The hook up front, the story's got to start, and one reason if I don't like something, and but Peter says it's good writing, I'll listen to that. So that's the team based approach we have. If Peter says it's good writing, I'll reconsider, because it's I trust his opinion on those decisions. But many times the rejection is if it seems like a story that's been done before. Some rejections are just the memoirs that we're getting too many that are very similar, and so that it hurts them all, really, because we'll say, well, let's see if we have something else in the pile, and then if the novel depends too much on somebody else's work, and if like a novel that's written using characters from another novel, it's just leave those characters alone. It's been done. Now I think it's maybe not so much in the manuscripts, but in the short stories, a lot of authors will try to use Animal Farm, for instance, for a short story. But we've seen that in short story collections that I won't like, and because it's if it's been done, it's been done, and it should be left alone in my rejection world. But and so there's and Mark, you hear there's different reasons. There's no black or white. There's a discussion for each novel that comes in. We don't say, oh yeah, we rejected something like that before. We reject all those now, because we're open to all genres, and we look for the good stories. Like Peter said, we look for the story. Tell us the story, and with good writing, and chances are we'll like it.
Yeah, I think Peter and Ben really nailed it. I don't know why my screen's frozen. I apologize, guys. But I do something very similar when we go through the manuscripts. I'll read at least the first 5 to 10 pages and see if it grabs me, if the writing's good, if it's using a lot of passive, that's for me typically a big turnoff. But that's true of any editor. That's not that there's nothing new in that. I also will look is this something that we've seen a lot? I'm guessing the influences like TV and film or something, because sometimes we'll see a lot of similar stories with very similar characters, and we'll actually, if the writing's really, really solid, oftentimes we'll actually have a decent conversation about it, because we don't want to just tacitly reject it just because we've seen a dozen similar stories. Usually it's because again, a combination of maybe the story doesn't actually go anywhere, the characters are too cliched, sometimes, honestly, if it's got a ton of typos, we've seen that too. Sometimes we'll forgive it because it's that intriguing, the concept's that intriguing, but if we do forgive it, it's usually a really decent conversation among us as to should we forgive it? Is this something that we really want to look into? And a lot of times too, we'll find manuscripts that we love. We know it's not publication ready, right? We know from reading it that it needs at least the eye of an editor, like a solid concept editor. We know that, but we need to check in with the author to find out, would you be open to working with an editor on this? Would you be open to revisions? Because there are a lot of instances where someone has been putting their work out there for 3, 5, 10 years, and they just keep getting rejected. And as far as they're concerned, well, screw you. this is done because I've been working on this for 3, 5, 10 years. Now, mind you, we all understand that because we're all authors, right? We're all writers, and we get that frustration and we get the desire to just get it out there into the world. But if we're reaching out to you because we think it's like, 70% there, or, we as a team, back to what Ben was describing before, we as a team agree, like, hey, this is great, but man, if they could just do this, it would be phenomenal, right? We're reaching out with those recommendations because we know that this thing could be completely stellar. And, I'd say what, guys, like 80% of the time when we make this recommendation, the author will come back and say, I'm in, like, game on, let's do it. It's more unusual. The author's not willing to work with us on the potential revisions. But we do get that, but it's not frequent. It's definitely abnormal. So, but yeah, and again, to Ben's point, you'd be surprised. Like we when we have, the equivalent of like an acquisition, well, it is an acquisition meeting, right? When we have our acquisition meetings, you would be surprised the number of times it's a conversation, because sometimes, again, it's a slam dunk and all of us say, wow, that was phenomenal, let's do it. And other times, 2 or 3 people love it, 2 or 3 people don't, and everybody's got a valid reasons as to why, right? So we just talk about it, and it doesn't get contentious. It doesn't get all, there's no cat fight. I know it would be much more exciting if we said that, but it's actually, usually like just a very like, oh my God, I loved blah, blah, blah. Or, well, this really bugged me because it didn't work, and I'm not sure how to get this resolved, or it could even be I'm concerned because of X, Y, and Z, and because we have actually published stories that we've put trigger warnings on, and there have been times when there was a concern about that. So so that's that's the incredibly long summation of what Ben and Peter already said.
Sometimes it's if the characters ring true, if we look for not just the story, but if say the character represents some place or some region or some culture, we want that character to ring true, and what they say needs to be true and authentic. And sometimes authors are, I'm not going to say misappropriating a culture, but they are writing about a culture in a very narrow perspective, and that shows that comes through. And it's if the writing and the story is good, we may go back to the author and say, this is an issue, we've got to talk about it. And I've talked to one of our editors before about this. It was a depiction of a Native American, and he didn't think it rang true. So I said, well, you got to have the conversation with the author and make sure it does, and fix that. But if it looks like it's been glossed over and superficial, that may be a rejection right there, or at least from one of us or 2 of us. And conversation.
Oh, that's thank you for that. Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
No, because if it happens once, it's going to happen throughout the rest of the book as well. So it's not a one-off. It's usually a pattern.
Yeah.
Agreed. And we've, we have encountered times when the story was interesting, but it didn't ring true. So we would find out if the author was willing to work with us in really making the characters more 3-dimensional. And we would also find someone who was of that culture to read the piece, because, some of us may be exposed to those cultures, but because we're not from it, we can't, there are lots of things we just simply can't understand. Right. So, yeah, that's an excellent point, Ben. Holy crap. And with that, it is the end of the hour or top of the next one. So I want to thank Ben and Peter yet again for being the amazing gentlemen that they are. And I want to thank Margaret and Caroline for all your great questions. And if you guys are watching and it's not Thursday between 5 and 6 or 8 and 9, then we want to thank you for watching this on your whatever chosen hour is. And we will talk to you guys again. See you next week.